City County Planning Commission come to meeting, please? Have a roll call, Ms. Martin.
Sir, Commissioner Rich?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale?
Abstain.
For roll call, you're here.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I was on the minute. I was jumping
No
in.
problem. Commissioner Balance?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Coppinger?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert? Commissioner Gay?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Madison?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Runner? Chair Houston?
Ma'am. I think everyone's got a copy of the minutes from last meeting. Any corrections, changes? If not, I'll call for a motion.
So moved.
Commissioner Rich?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale?
Abstain.
Commissioner Balance? Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Coppinger? Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert? Commissioner Gay?
Abstain.
Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Madison?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Houston?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Houston, I request that you order that the record include all statutory and regulatory provisions, the Commission's entire file for each application, and the qualifications for each staff witness. Finally, I request that you administer the oath to those witnesses.
All swear to tell the truth. Thank you. Preliminary subdivisions and site development plans. Any questions?
Mr. Houston, I believe financial report might be next, sir.
I'm sorry.
And Ms. Megan has a presentation for you.
Financial report, Ms. Manning.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to go through our budget amendment pretty quickly with the whole group tonight. We weren't able to have a budget committee meeting prior to the Planning Commission meeting tonight because we had a personnel committee meeting. So I'm just going to go through each of the line items with you real quick and open it up for questions. So the first thing I want to point out is everyone has a packet in their packet, our amendment, and it has everything that we're changing is in yellow. We're only changing a few items. I'm going to start off by giving you a brief explanation on why we need to do this amendment. Last year, after we had submitted our budget to the city and the county, we received word that we had been approved for a grant to do a transportation study for GoBG and WKU's transit system. So that meant that our transit planning funds that are on line 6 increased significantly. You guys will notice that. And we were also fortunate enough that the city and WKU matched that. So it actually didn't cost the Planning Commission anything to do that grant. So we'll move on to the next page. There's only a couple things on that. On expenses, I'm going to jump down to line number 54. So our income increased on transit, as you guys noticed, but our expenses also increased to pay for that transit study. So you'll notice that line increased from $55,000 to $125,000 to pay for that transit study. Again, it was basically just a pass-through. We didn't have to pay for, we were reimbursed for 100% of that study. Let's see. Next, let's move up to line number 49. Again, after we finished our budget last year, we found out that we were the recipient of a $6,000 grant, the Paula Nye grant, and Carissa in our office overseas and had applied for that. And we actually received that money at the end of last fiscal year, but we didn't spend it until this year. So we have spent almost all of that $6,000, and we'll have that completed by the end. So that went from 0 to 6,000. The next item that we have is line number 55. We increased that line item because we've bought some additional GIS software that MPO is using. And then to balance it all out, I have made an increase or I'm sorry, a decrease in line 80 to balance out line 55s. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell. Do I have any questions that I can answer for you guys?
So, sounds like most of this was passed through except
Yes.
for the GIS equipment or the GIS software?
It is, we will get reimbursed. It's either 80 to 85% of that amount will come back in as income. Yeah.
Any other questions, commissioners?
All right, thank you.
There are no questions?
Do we need a
we'll
motion
need
to
a motion.
approve this?
I'll call for a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the fiscal year 2019 budget amendment as proposed this evening.
Commissioner Rich? Thank you, sir. Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Balance? Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Clark? Commissioner Coppinger? Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vogert? Commissioner Gay?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Madison?
Ma'am.
Chair Houston?
Yes, ma'am. Now, we have the preliminary subdivision and site development plans, and I don't see any.
Couple in the packet for review. No motion is necessary for that one, sir.
Do we have any questions on those? We'll need a motion. No,
For those.
no motion. No questions. Then we'll move on to letters of credit and performance bonds. Release cash bond from Brianna Court in the amount of $33,500 from Gary West Park, and renew letter of credit on Green Hills Development in the amount of $150,000 from Green Hills Development Partners. Any questions on those? We'll need a motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rich?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Balance?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Coppinger?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vogert? Commissioner Gay?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Madison?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Houston?
Yes, ma'am. Under old business, we have a case that has been withdrawn. If there's anyone in the audience in regards to Magnolia Lane Investments, that has been withdrawn. And also, under tonight's hearings, Jason and Amanda Terrell, Curtis and Karen Rafferty, GTS Properties has been withdrawn. So if there's anyone here in regards to those, we will not be hearing those tonight. That will move us into 2019-24Z County. Reuben and Martha Lancaster and Curtis Rafferty have filed an application to rezone a tract of land containing approximately .881 acres located at 2371 Plano Road from agriculture to general business with a general development plan. And along with that, we have a variance on the property located at 2371 Plano Road. This property is zoned agriculture. And we will have.
Ready?
I'm
All
ready.
right.
Go right ahead.
We had a pre-application conference on March the 11th for the property, as you mentioned, 2371 Plano Road, located on the north side of Carter Sims Road there at the corner. Many of you may know this property historically being utilized for Reuben's Garage. The application this evening proposes a retail use, more specifically the construction of a Dollar General store at this location. The existing zoning of the property is agriculture, and the existing use is industrial. Staff has noted in the report that although the property is zoned agriculture, the property has been used for some type of commercial or industrial use prior to the county adopting countywide zoning, which is why the property is still zoned agriculture. The future land use designation for the property is mixed-use residential. This category applies to mixed-use areas where taken as a whole, the primary land use is residential in a variety of housing types and densities, balanced by complementary retail, office, institutional, and civic uses. The distribution of land among these various activities shall be implemented through specific zoning with standards addressing the form and character of development to ensure compatibility. This designation applies to urbanized areas being redeveloped with the primary use as residential, where complementary commercial and services are provided in a contiguous area. Here, development standards should be tailored to emphasize an urban character and a mix of intensity and development appropriate to this unique center of activity. No commercial footprint should exceed 10,000 square feet. Compatibility should be assessed by applying the policies in LU 113 in conjunction with a general development plan. This is the general development plan that's submitted with the application. You can see the general building footprint here. It's proposed at 9,100 square feet. And then let me jump to my copy here so I can reference some distances. It's a little hard to read on the screen there. Sorry. Bear with me here. All right. So there is a variance proposed with this application this evening. I believe there's a typo in the staff report. It says a variance of 20 feet. It should be a variance of 28 feet. You'll note that the rear corner in this location, it's closest to the property line. This corner here is not as close. The proposed distance here is 12.62 feet. And then the proposed distance from the rear property line down here is 17.38 feet. So the variance would cover the entire rear property line. Since the building is proposed at 12.62, we would just round down to 12. And that's where we came up with the variance of 28 feet. So I apologize for that typo when we get to that, but that is what it should read in your report. You can see there's also parking proposed along the Plano Road side of the building, and then some parking along Carter Sims as well. And then there is a loading and unloading area back in this area. And then also the dumpster, I believe, the dumpster enclosure would be back in that general area as well. Let me jump back into the report here. Moving on to the site characteristics review. We did look at the available water and wastewater adequacy in the area. The property would be served by sanitary sewer if this application is approved. And the staff has also noted that there's adequate water available to the property to meet the minimum fire protection requirements. Under site design and compatibility, I'll touch on the surrounding architectural features. Staff has noted that the area is mainly comprised of 1- and 2-story residential structures. The existing building on the property is constructed of concrete block and vinyl. Residential structures in the area are a mixture of brick, stone, and vinyl. Under building orientation, we've noted that the existing building faces Plano Road. The applicants have also committed that any new structure would also face Plano Road. Under landscaping and screening, landscaping on the property will adhere to the minimum requirements in the zoning ordinance for vehicle use areas as well as between an incompatible use. And the applicants are also proposing to install a living fence along the western property line. It's shown on the exhibit. It's in this general location here down this property line. Under area-specific policy review, staff has noted that the proposed development is located within the boundary of the Plano Focal Point Plan, which was adopted in October of 2018. We evaluated 9 applicable policies from this plan. I'm going to run through those here. The first is PL1. To ensure suitable development of vacant tracts and infill sites within the Plano community, the future land use map should guide all zoning and development decisions. The proposed zone is a potentially compatible zoning designation in the mixed-use residential future land use designation and complies with this policy. PL2, the following uses should be prohibited: bingo, pawn shop, tattoo parlor, adult entertainment, sale of alcoholic beverages by the drink except in conjunction with a restaurant, commercial parking, billboards, self-service storage, and manufactured and mobile home sales. The applicant's committed to prohibiting all of these uses and complies with this policy. PL3, PL4, and PL6. We evaluated these together. The analysis is there under PL6. They're kind of all related and complement one another, so we just evaluated them all together. So if you'll just draw your attention to PL6, I'll go over the explanation in a minute. But PL3, future development should be sensitive to the existing pattern of development in the area, including building orientation and setbacks. PL4, all non-residential development fronting Plano Road should be designed in a way to appear to face Plano Road, regardless of the location of the driveway access and parking. And PL6, consideration should be given to the existing pattern of development in the surrounding area, including building setbacks along existing roadways. The front yard setback in general business, which is the proposed zone, is 25 feet. And I'm going to jump back to... You can see the house, the building footprints of the existing residences kind of underneath the land use layer, so this may help when I'm going through this. But the majority of the nearby structures in the area sit on property which is zoned residential estate, which also has a 25-foot front yard setback. The development plan that I was just referencing shows that the proposed building will be located approximately 60 feet from Plano Road. The existing building is located approximately 40 to 50 feet from Plano Road. Structures south of Carter Sims Road on the west side of Plano Road, so that'd be the same, it'd be the same side, going the wrong way. Be the same side of Plano Road, so on the west side, these structures here. These structures have front setbacks ranging from 65 to 90 feet, and the proposed front setback of the building shown on the development plan falls within the range of these setbacks. Under PL7, all non-residential development should have underground utilities. The applicant's committed to this in their development plan conditions and comply with this policy. PL8, future development should incorporate high-quality design materials. Plain-face blocks should be prohibited for all facades, and split-face blocks should be permitted only for building foundations for single-family residential uses. The applicant's prohibited plain-face block but not split-face block, and so the proposal does not comply with this policy. PL11, freestanding signage in sections 2, 3, and 4. And if y'all, I don't know if y'all remember, but in the Plano Focal Point Plan, there's different sections within the plan that are identified. So this is located within that area in section, I think it's in section 2, if I'm remembering off the top of my head. But freestanding signage in this area should be monument style, limited to a maximum of 8 feet in height, with a maximum sign face area of 32 square feet. Such signage should be externally illuminated only, with the exception of signage for time, temperature, or fuel prices. The applicant's committed to signage that adheres to these standards and complies with this policy. PL13, parking areas for non-residential development should not be located within the building setback along Plano Road and should be located to the side and rear of the building when possible. The proposed layout shows parking in front of the building along Plano Road and does not comply with this policy. The concept plan also shows that the proposed development is overparked by 5 spaces based on the minimum requirements for retail use in the zoning ordinance. Moving on to the development plan conditions. Number 1, any HVAC or mechanical equipment existing on the roof of any structure shall be appropriately screened from residential properties. Number 2, whenever reasonable, any and all mature trees located on the northern and western property lines shall be preserved outside the building envelopes and parking and drive areas. I'll go back to the aerial. You can see those trees that are referenced in that condition. Number 3, any freestanding signage shall be monument style, limited to a maximum of 8 feet in height and a maximum sign face area of 32 square feet, and shall be externally illuminated only. The building wall sign will be 4 feet 8 inches by 33 feet 3 inches facing Plano Road, and that is shown here on the exhibit at the bottom of the screen there. Number 4, all utilities will be located underground. Number 5, no building shall exceed 2 stories. Number 6, any structure on the property shall face Plano Road. The front facades of any building facing Plano Road will be constructed with a minimum of 80% brick, stone, ephes, or similar material. No plain-face blocks shall be allowed on facades, and concealed fasteners will be utilized along with architectural steel panels on the western side of the building only. And I believe, in speaking with the applicants, earlier today that they would like to clarify that similar material in this development plan condition should also include cement-based siding, but I will let them speak to that here in just a minute. Number 7, the property shall have no chain link fences. A living fence will be installed along the western property line that abuts to the single-family home on Carter Sims Road. Number 8 outlines prohibited uses, which I mentioned earlier. Number 9, there shall be roadway improvements at the intersection of Carter Sims and Plano Road to include widening of Carter Sims to accommodate dedicated right and left turn lanes onto Plano Road per the Warren County Public Works Department. And those turn lanes are shown on the exhibit here on Carter Sims with the intersection at Plano Road. Number 10, the property shall only be served by 2 entrances, one on Plano Road here and another on Carter Sims here. These entrances will be reviewed and approved by Kentucky Transportation Cabinet and the Warren County Public Works Department. Under the Focus 2030 category review, staff evaluated 18 goals, objectives, and action items from the Focus 2030 Comprehensive Plan, and staff noted that the application complies with nearly half of these items. There were 2 items that the application did not comply with, and there were 8 items that we felt was left best to the evaluation of the Planning Commission. So you all are supposed to determine compliance with these 8 policies, or goals or action items rather. So I'm going to touch on the 2 that are not in compliance and the other 8 that you need to evaluate for compliance. So the first is LU 113, which looks at compatibility. The Planning Commission should determine if the proposed development is compatible with the area. LU 2 looks at quality of development and protection of community character. The Planning Commission should determine if the proposal is a high-quality development that will protect the community character of Plano. LU 2.8 and LU 2.8.1 relate to the Plano Focal Point Plan. Those are the items that I evaluated on the previous page. The proposal complies with the majority of the Focal Point Plan policies, but not all of the policies were noted in compliance. So you all should determine compliance with these items. Next, we have LU 2.9, which looks at the character of the Plano community. The Planning Commission should determine if the development is in keeping with the character of the Plano community. NCR 2.5 and NCR 2.5.3 look at preservation of historic structures. Staff has noted that the existing structure was built in 1955. The proposed development would involve demolishing that structure and building a new structure on the property as shown on this plan. Although the existing structure is not listed on the National Register of Historic Places, nor is it a locally designated historic property, so the application does not comply with these action items, but we did note that it's not on the National Register or locally historically designated. HN1 and HN1.3 look at infill development. The Planning Commission should determine if the proposal is an infill project that is compatible with the area and if it will maintain or improve the existing character of the area. And last, ED1, which looks at economic development. The Planning Commission should determine if the proposed development will help to diversify the local economy. Next, we have the zoning ordinance reference for the variance, which is contained in Article 468C1, which requires an additional setback for commercial development when adjacent to a single-family residential use. Typically, the rear yard in the proposed zone would be 40 feet along this property line. And as I mentioned earlier, the applicants are requesting a variance of 28 feet for the proposed structure to be located 12.61 feet from the property line. With that, I'll jump back to the points to consider and wrap up with those on page 1. The proposal is consistent with the future land use map in the mixed-use residential category. The proposed development complies with the majority of the site characteristics review criteria and also complies with the majority of the review criteria for site design. If the proposed variance is approved, the development would meet the minimum requirements in the zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission should determine if the proposed development is compatible with the surrounding area. A commercial and or industrial use has operated on the property since before countywide zoning was implemented in 1972, and the Planning Commission should determine if the applicants have addressed the findings necessary for granting a variance as outlined in KRS 100.243. I think that's all I have for the report, but I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicants are also here if you have questions for them.
Rachel, so in the area-specific policy review, PL 8,
All right, let me get to that.
refers to split-face block. And then in the general development plan and conditions, number 6 seems to refer to a brick facade. Am I understanding those correctly? Because there seems to be a contradiction.
Sure. So PL8 suggests that plain face block should be prohibited for all facades,
All
which
facades.
they did prohibit plain face block. There in,
I see. I think the key here is all facades, and then the brick is only on the front facade. Am I following?
yes. The other requirement in PL8 is that, or suggestion at least, is that if split face block is utilized within the Plano community for new development, that it be used only for building foundations for single-family residential uses and not for multifamily or commercial uses. So the way their development plan conditions are proposed, split face block is not prohibited. So that's why we had stated that that is not in compliance.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel, 13, the concept plan shows parking located in the building setback along Plano Road. Proposal does not comply with this policy. The concept plan also shows the proposed development be overparked by 5 spaces based on zoning ordinance requirements for retail.
Sure. Do you want to help explain that a little bit more?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the first portion of that policy states that parking areas for non-residential development should not be located within the building setback. There's actually not any parking spaces located within the building setback, so that portion is actually met. But then if you go on, it also states that parking areas should be located to the side and rear of the building. So part of it is located to the side and rear when possible. So we had just noted that part of the parking is in front of the building. As shown, they have 5 extra spaces based on minimum zoning ordinance requirements. So it doesn't comply with a portion of the policy, but it does comply with one portion of the policy. So I guess you all just kind of need to weigh in on the importance of that policy and what that means for the Plano community.
Overparked by 5 spaces means that based on retail, they are proposing more parking spaces than is allowed.
Correct. We just have a minimum parking standard. There's no maximum parking requirement, but for retail use, it's 1 space per each 400 square feet of building area. And so based on that calculation, they would have 5 spaces over the minimum requirement.
So if those parking spaces were done away with, would we still need the variance? Would the building be in compliance as it relates to the setback?
I think even if you removed 5 of the parking spaces, it would be physically impossible to remove all the parking from the front of the building, just based on the size of the building and the way the layout is shown here. I know their engineering team is here. They may be able to speak to that better than I would, but I don't believe even with removing 5 parking spaces that you could situate the building to where it would meet the 40-foot rear yard setback that's typically required when adjacent to single family.
How exactly is the building going to set? I'm looking at this. It's going to face Plano?
Yep. It'll
You're going
face
to have all this parking in front? And what side are you talking about?
the side along Carter Sims, this side here. The front of the building would be oriented towards Plano Road, so this part would have a front facade oriented towards Plano Road, and there, like I mentioned, there's some parking that's in front of the building.
Okay, how does the truck get in to put stock? And where does that going to come in at?
I believe the truck will come in here and then back up there. Okay. I thought I remembered that right.
I'm sorry, I didn't see what your...
So the truck would come in off of Plano Road and pull into the site here and then back in this way. And the loading area is back here.
And that's what's backs up to the neighbor next door?
Correct.
Okay. There's nothing about lighting on here either. What kind of lighting?
I'm not sure, but there is a
They've got a really
requirement.
close neighbor.
There's a requirement in the zoning ordinance, just, it's mandatory that any lighting installed on commercial property has to be directed downward and inward and does not produce light trespass onto adjacent residential properties.
Question, Rachel. I'm somewhat familiar with this site just because I've been through there. Currently, it is paved all the way out, I think, to the street.
Yeah, let me go back to the aerial here.
Okay.
Yes,
And,
so, and some of it even spills out into the right-of-way.
Right. And so it proposes two entrances. Will after, let's see, let me restate that. That was poorly stated. Will there be two entrances, or will it still be paved all the way out to the street?
There will only be two entrances. It'll be if this is approved and when the property is redeveloped, they would close off that existing continuous pavement and access along the road and would only be utilizing this access point on Plano Road and this access point on Carter Sims.
Do you know what they're proposing, how that's going to be closed off? Is it a traffic calming device? Is it landscaping?
So there would be landscaping required along this portion of the property between the pavement and the property line, and then also the same along Carter Sims. There would be a landscape buffer that would physically prevent people from entering or exiting the site.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel, we had multiple meetings related to future land use map, focal point plan for Plano. I think I was at one of those. There was at least two others, I think.
Yes, there were several, yes.
I realize this is hindsight, or part of my question relates to hindsight. But what was the discussion amongst the folks that did attend this, or those meetings? Because I don't remember anything specific based on this property, but I do remember discussion about commercial development in this area.
Sure.
As it related to that focal point plan.
Yeah, let me jump back to the future land use map. So in our discussions, again, this was just with the people from the Plano community who attended those public forums and provided their feedback. Part of that, we actually had the existing future land use map, and everybody was given a card with different stickers representing different future land use categories. And during one of the public meetings, everyone was given the opportunity to basically place a sticker for each designation to identify where in the Plano community they felt those uses would be most appropriate. So when we looked at the results of that exercise with all the stickers from everybody that was there, basically all of the commercial or multifamily uses were situated north of the Natcher Parkway. And then everything south was generally going to be low-density residential or agriculture. But there were a couple of exceptions that the community expressed that they felt would be appropriate for commercial uses in addition to being north of the parkway. One of those was down here. It's kind of cut off at the bottom of the screen there, but it would be at the crossroads where the Plano store is and the fire department, kind of in that central node there. The community, at least again from the members who were present at the public input meetings, said that that would be acceptable to them, and then also identified this property for mixed-use residential, meaning smaller scale, less than 10,000 square foot building, service, retail types of uses, because that property had historically always been a non-residential use. So there were kind of three places: north of the Natcher, the central node down at the crossroads with the Plano store and the fire department, and then this property here. And so I guess that's kind of a background on how we arrived at this designation. Mm-hmm.
Where will the dumpster or the trash be?
I believe the dumpster enclosure is back here. Yes, it's required by the ordinance that it be enclosed.
Swim, this may be an interesting question. I'll direct it to the entire staff. Since this is currently technically zoned agriculture. Are we to consider the fact that it's been operating as a commercial entity for quite some time?
You can. I guess based on the current zone, if this request was not before you this evening, and someone wanted to buy the property and repurpose the building, the way the ordinance reads, for non-conforming use, it can continue indefinitely unless it ceases for 18 months or longer. And during that time, it's not that it's Ruben's Garage now, so it's not to say that the next use in would have to be Ruben's Garage. It can be anything that's that same intensity or a lesser intensity that could still operate on the property under the current ag zone.
So it's only this change that triggers the zone change, correct? The purpose, the use.
Yes, because they're proposing to demolish the existing structure. The ordinance for a non-conforming use, if you demolish voluntarily the existing structure containing the non-conforming use, that requires you to bring the property into compliance with all current zoning requirements.
If they were not demolishing, they were going to use this existing building, they're permitted to do that, correct?
Correct. Under the ag zone, if someone wanted to come in and repurpose the interior portion of the building for a use that's the same intensity or less, that would be permitted.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
A quick example of that might be Boyce General Store out in Boyce. For example, that is also zoned agriculture, but historically it's been a store and of course a restaurant. However, it is currently zoned agriculture. Hopefully this never happens, but if that was torn down or demolished, then that would require rezoning for even that same use to come back. So.
Commissioners, any other questions for Rachel? If not, we'll hear from the applicant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Houston, members of the commission. Chris Davenport here on behalf of Mr. Kurt Rafferty, who is a contract vendor on the property, and also with us is the Lancaster's daughter, Mr. and Mrs. Lancaster's daughter. So happy to represent them tonight. As always, Rachel kind of stole my thunder with her summary, and your questions are pretty much all right on point too. But the first point that I did want to accentuate is that this application is flume compliant, being consistent with the mixed-use residential classification. Second point I want to make for you, and it's the point you were just discussing, is that this is kind of, well, I would call it a grandfathered property. That may not be the proper term anymore, I don't know, but with this rezoning, if it were to occur, we bring this property, not only give it a classification consistent with its use at that point, but also we bring it under the requirements of things like lighting, landscaping, where you don't have basically a continuous driveway opening onto Plano Road and on Carter Sims Road. All those things come with it. So I think those, frankly, are benefits that you should consider when thinking about the property. A lot of questions about the setback. I want to reiterate, as set out in the staff report, that the current structure is not compliant with the setback requirement. The current structure sits within 20 feet. So that's essentially half of the requirement. We are seeking a variance of that requirement, but again, the current structure doesn't satisfy it either. As Rachel pointed out, the proposal meets with or complies with a majority of the criteria assessed in the review process. I would probably revise that just a little bit and say that it complies with a virtual, pretty much all of the policies. There are a couple she's noted. Your questions have already touched upon those. I'm going to touch upon those too. But virtually all of the policies that are triggered either with the zoning ordinance or the flume or the Plano focal point, all those are virtually all satisfied. Again, the variance is sought, but just to ensure, well, one benefit of the variance, let me say this, and Rachel touched upon this very briefly, is that one benefit of the variance is that the building, if this is rezoned, basically will blend in with the setbacks of the other properties, the other buildings on Plano Road. And I think that's, you know, when you talk about compatibility, that's a benefit, that's a plus. When we talk about the parking, okay, and one thing Rachel said is You know, it's kind of up to this board to decide maybe which one of these policies bear more weight than the others. Y'all do that every, or at least 2 Thursdays a month. While the policy talks about parking in the back, at least in my experience, most of the time that you all rezone properties that are adjacent to residential properties, we really don't like the parking to be next to the residential property. Most residential property owners don't want the parking next to them. They'd rather have the parking on the other side of the building, which I think makes sense in this case. So in looking, let's talk about the couple areas where staff noted maybe some issues or some thoughts. And Rachel, I guess the first point I want to make sure, I guess I'll ask you this, is that Commissioner Warren asked about the building, I think, or maybe Commissioner Graham, I forget which one, about the Plano building setbacks. And our concept plan does not show any parking within those setbacks. Is that correct?
Correct. The parking spaces are not in the setback.
Okay. Just want to make sure that, because when I read that, I kind of maybe read that way too. We do have more parking, as she pointed out, and if tonight more parking is an issue, that doesn't have to be an issue for us. But frankly, if more parking is an issue, that's probably the first time I've heard of more parking being that. Usually it's, do you have enough parking? Because we don't want parking on right-of-ways and that sort of thing. The other issue then is the split-faced block, okay? And our design requirement and our DPC requires that facade to be 80% brick, EIFS, or other material. We did prohibit completely, and I get them confused. Rachel, what's the other type of block? Not split face, but plain. Yeah, smooth. We did prohibit that completely. If I could pass something out to you guys, ladies and gents. The reason why we have it at this point, thank you, requested to completely ban the split face block is if you look at that picture, down towards, well, I guess the foundation or at grade, there is a material that we frankly are afraid might be considered split face block. It's not what I think of when I think of split face block. It's not cinder block. I think it looks quite a bit better than that. But that's kind of what we have envisioned, and that's why we didn't agree to completely ban that. Okay? But again, they are committed to 80% of that facade being brick or stone or whatnot.
Chris, this drawing shows the front facade.
Correct.
What will be on the Carter Sims side? What will be on the other facades?
The same material.
Same.
Correct.
So that same finish, that same.
The
look.
same
So
correct.
Oh, it'll be 80% brick.
Pretty well. Those facades will.
Facade, yeah.
That's correct. They have committed to architectural steel with concealed fasteners on other facades if they use those. If they do use those.
Okay, so just for clarification here, I want to make sure I understand. We have 4 elevations here, and initially I thought I understood you to say that all 4 elevations will look like this that we're seeing.
But what I meant to say is, to the extent there's something that's someone wants to call split-face block utilized, it will be consistent with that elevation there close to grade, underneath the brick.
Okay, and so that drawing that we're looking at has probably 75 to 80% brick, and it has one material that we that looks similar to a large brick, but your concern is that would be misconstrued as a split-face block.
Yes, sir.
And so would my understanding be correct if I thought all 4 elevations were going to be of this surface?
I don't think that's required by the DPC, Commissioner Graham.
It is not, but I thought that's what you were suggesting, so I'm looking for clarification.
You were saying the front facade and the side facing Carter Sims.
And I'm hearing there's 3 of those, correct?
The front facing Plano, the north side, and the south side facing Carter Sims.
What will be the back of the building?
Architectural steel with concealed fasteners.
Okay, it's concealed fastener. Okay, so
Yes,
we've got
sir.
3 facades that will have this surface, and 1 facade, the rear facade, would have a steel with concealed fasteners.
Correct.
Okay.
And I didn't mean, again, was not mean to mislead. The purpose I wanted to point out is when we hear, and obviously it's one of the comments in the staff's notes, is this issue with split face block. Now, I just wanted to show you all what we intend to do that may or may not be construed as that. And I don't think that picture is near as concerning as I might envision in my mind when I hear split face block somewhere on a facade.
Chris, I'll go ahead and ask the question. Would they consider going ahead and doing the back in brick?
I would need to talk to my client about that. I will need
I
opportunity
mean, if
to
you're
do
doing
that.
3 of the sides. Well, the other 3 sides are gonna be brick or that. I mean, so yeah, I guess the question I would ask is, would they consider go ahead and putting in the buying elements to do the back with the same facade as the front?
If you could afford me that, I'm sure other people are going to speak tonight, and that'll give me time to talk to my client about that. That's essentially what I wanted to address with you all. Again, virtually all the policies are met. The only exceptions were the block issue, and then this parking issue, but we're over parking. So
your argument is they're just bringing it up to code.
I think we're exactly, and obviously with proper entrances, ingress and egress, proper landscaping, proper lighting, all those things that come along with that. And I'll mention DPC 9. They've committed to upgrade the intersection. We didn't talk much about that. Going to put in turn lanes. The things that Warren County Public Works said they wanted done, my client agreed to do those things.
Just lastly, would you revisit your statement regarding the existing building not complying with the setbacks and the new building being in essentially the same location?
Well, it'll be a little closer because the variance we're requesting is a little closer than the building currently sits.
Do you know how much closer?
5-6 feet?
Okay.
As much as 8. Again, you get the living fence with that, some other things that doesn't have to be done right now, frankly, with the current building. But the point I'm making is the variance is from 40. So the current building is twice as close as it should be under the ordinance.
See.
That was the point.
Did you talk with the neighbors? No. You didn't have any kind of neighborhood meeting or talk to these ones that are right there located?
We did not, Commissioner Clark, and I've seen both sides of that. Frankly, I've been very honest with staff that the last couple of years those haven't been overly productive, and so we did not do that. No, ma'am.
It's going to be right on top of a couple of neighbors, and I just was concerned for them because of the way the building's going to be set and all the parking. There's extra parking. If they could do away with some of those parking spaces there in front, maybe. But it's supposed to be a high-quality development. And you've got these nice houses out there in a dangerous intersection, and we want to do everything we can to help protect those neighbors who have lived out there. And I know this place, Rubens, has been out there for years because I've driven out there many times. But let's do a high quality, and that's why I propose that they also, because you see a lot of these Dollar General stores where they have a nice front, then they have metal down the sides and the back. And that just wouldn't work in this community. And if they would consider doing all 4 sides.
I'll certainly talk to you about the 4th. I will say they've already obligated to 3 of those. So. Any other questions I can answer for you right now?
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you all.
Do we have anyone in the audience that is opposed to this or would like to make a statement? Okay. If you'll come up, and we'll need to get your name and address and swear you in.
My name is Deborah Harston. I live 414 Dewey Lake Road in Plano.
Swear to tell the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
First of all, when we moved to Plano, Reuben was already there, and I have nothing but respect for him and wish nothing. I mean, if he could get a lot of money for that place, I'd love it. But just first, can I have everybody stand up that's here from Plano? Is that proper?
Sure.
Okay. And all the ones that came tonight? So, okay, there's not many of us, but so that's the first thing, because I've just always respected him. And, but I guess I've been there since 1985. We moved there in 1985. And we love it. It's just home to us, and we love the community. But now suddenly everybody loves Plano. And it's just growing so fast that it concerns me that it's, when we try to get out of our road on Dewey Lake, it's just so much traffic already. And that is what bothers me, is it's just so much traffic there, and they're building, this is not what this is about, but it's just going to increase. And my concern is for the safety of everyone on that road. And that section of the road is the only straight section on 622 pretty much. And people just tend to open up and fly through there. And I'm afraid they're not going to see that, and there's going to be a lot of traffic there. If you go to a dollar store at Christmas or anything, there's people everywhere, and they park everywhere. They'll be in their driveways or whatever if there's not enough parking too. But that's my main thing. And they're talking about the store. If dollar stores are not known for their upkeep, if you've been to the one on Scottsville Road, inside and out, it is not kept up. And that will not fit into the community, because everyone out there is invested in our land, in our community. So I guess that's it. I just love Plano, and I love the people there, and I just hate to see things go downhill.
Thank you.
Ms. Harston, if I may, could I ask you one question? With regard to traffic, is it your concern that this new store will attract more traffic, or is it, explain your concern?
Okay, already so much traffic. I live the first road, the second little road past the parkway on Dewey Lake, and it's really hard to get out of there. But on down there, people are going to be coming from Woodburn, they're going to be coming from Gold City, Rich Pond, all of those, and then over Long Road and Matlock Road and all those. So yes, there will be a lot of traffic.
You view this as an attraction that would increase traffic in
Yes.
that regard? Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I live south of
I
where
need
the
to have your
store's
name and
proposed.
address.
My name is Sam Peach, and I live at 2411 Plano Road.
And you
And
s-
Jennifer Blair has also asked me to make comments on her behalf.
Okay, and you swear to tell the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. What you all have approved already is something like 250 houses on Long Road and Matlock and Carter Sims. Now, each one of those houses will have at least 2 cars, if not 3. That's 500 to 600 and some houses, cars. Now, we have Carter Sims that your left-hand turn lanes aren't going to alleviate a whole bunch. They'll help. But you're not putting any turn lanes on Plano Road to help there. You're just doing it on Carter Sims. And the Carter Sims does not need parking available to Carter Sims. You could take that same parking and put it on the north end of the building, just like he said that most people in the subdivision don't like to see a parking lot. Okay, if you put it on the north end of the building and put a 6-foot fence that Miss Blair, the people that lives in the back, they want a barrier because of people loitering. And they do there in the summertime. Kids and that play around a lot, which is, the way it is. But she would like to see a 6-foot fence around the property. And she doesn't like the idea of the parking on the south end either, because you have a busy intersection. Now, granted, we have not as many people as Scottsville Road, but our traffic is condensed to rush hours. In other words, people going to work, people getting off of work, going to school, drop their kids off to school. We have people backed up on Carter Sims during the school year. for people to make a right turn, which that left and right turn lane will alleviate somewhat. But you still got to get out on the road. Are you going to put in a traffic circle or something that keeps traffic moving? You know, what are you going to do to keep us from having to, I mean, I won't be able to get out of my driveway at all.
So if I may ask a question just to see if I understand your concern and what you're proposing. In that scenario, there would be only one entrance?
Right. That would eliminate the problem of people going in and out from the store. Carter Sims, they'd be further down on the face of the building than they would on the end of the building.
So if they were traveling from Carter Sims, they would have to go out onto to Plano Road and then make a left turn to go into the building in that scenario. Am I understanding you correctly?
What they're going to do anyway. Because 80% of the traffic is going toward Natcher Parkway and I-65. I've lived out there 20 years. I've lived through many wrecks on that corner. And that's just going to create another big headache. I'm not firmly against the Dollar General store. I am against creating a problem. And the problem's been created by the amount of people moving into the area, and it's going to be exaggerated by this. Now, I know, just like he said, people living in a residential area don't want a parking lot to look at, and that's what everybody's going to look at when they go down Plano Road, is that end of Carter Sims. If it were on the other end with a fence across the end, you know, it's got to be somewhere, I agree. And like I say, I'm not opposed to the store in theory. I'm opposed to the parking.
Currently, with Rubin's Garage, it has an entrance on Carter Sims.
Yes, they do. They may pull a car or two in.
Okay, so it's not it's not parking, and that's the difference in these two. Am I understanding you correctly?
Right.
Okay.
They may, you know, they have to pull cars in to work on them, obviously. And that, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, would it be proper for me to ask Mr. Peach a few questions now or later?
Sure thing. Go ahead.
Mr. Peach, you live across Carter Sims, or you own the property across Carter Sims?
Yes.
And you're telling this commission that you're not opposed to a Dollar General in the area, you're just opposed to it on this particular parcel?
No, I didn't say that. I said I'm opposed to the parking on this parcel, the way you have proposed it.
Are you opposed to a Dollar General in this area generally?
No. You can put the parking on the north end of the store.
In fact, you attempted to sell your property
Yes.
to Mr. Rafferty last year.
Yeah, he come and asked to buy my property. Yes, you're right.
And you didn't see that that would be a problem if it was
I
on
didn't
your
offer any. He was the one pursuing it. I did not offer any.
That's all the questions I have.
Yeah, it wasn't, it was plainly told that planning and zoning would not allow a variance on my property. So that's the way it was. They checked into it, they looked it up, and, you know, I never had a contract with them.
You never had a
Well, wait a minute, I
never
did
had a
have that.
You
wait.
did have a contract.
I did have an agreement with them to sell it if they could get all their proposed
Yes, sir.
right-of-ways and everything. Yeah. But like I say, I'm not opposed to Dollar General out there. I'm just opposed to what you're going to do to us with the traffic. Because right in that area, until they put in the Plano bypass, we're going to have another 500 or so people coming down there to turn. I mean, you approved the housing out there, you know, or should know, and you should be aware that the majority of that traffic is coming towards Natcher and 65. I mean, you know, it's just obvious. And like I'm saying, I'm not trying to keep them from having a Dollar General at all. I just don't want to see parking to interfere with the flow of traffic. It will be less of a factor on Plano Road than it will be on Carter Sims. Because people, right now, they just cut off part of Rubin's lot and whiz around there.
Mr. Peach, if you were to characterize the Plano community, how would you characterize it? Is it residential? Is it community-based? How would you characterize it?
It's mainly residential, and they like things calm and quiet, you know.
Okay. That's the impression I get, but I just wanted to know if if you and the other Plano people feel
Yeah.
that way too.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have anything against, store going there, though. I just don't want to see the parking problem.
So would it be fair to say that you would be in support of this project if the parking were on the other side of the building?
Exactly.
Okay.
We're, like I say, where it could be contained in, for the view and everything else. I mean, I would rather see a wall, a brick wall, or whatever you want to, siding on our end, than to have the parking lots there. Because what happens with parking lots, I mean, it's not their fault. But what happens with parking lots, people throw trash down, that leave their carts, run off wherever. And, I can't say that it's going to happen, but, it's likely to, because the elevation on that side of the road is a little bit higher than it
Mr.
is
Pete,
on the road.
We thank you for your input. We've got a time limit here, and
Taking it up?
you have taken all of it. Thank you. Is there anyone else that needs to make a statement of any new consequence that we haven't already discussed?
My name's Alan Smith. I live at 2195 Dyford Road. It's technically Alvaton.
Swear to tell the truth.
I do. So I'm one of those that moved out there in the recent times and caused all the traffic problems. I want to ask y'all to vote against this or recommend against this, however this process works. I do have concerns about safety as well. I've had a near collision with my wife and my kids at that intersection before, that if I had left the house probably a second or two earlier, we'd all been dead. I also share concerns that there's no turn lane coming south on Plano Road, for instance. I can imagine if this place turns out to be popular, getting in and out of there is going to cause a lot of problems. There's only a few of us here tonight, but we do have a Facebook page, and there's been a lot of comments about it, about this potential development on there, particularly people that live across Plano Road from this store on Phelps Way, which there's a lot of houses back there. If we went back to that map, you could see it, that's their way out, in and out all day, every day. That we think would cause a lot of problems. There'd be a lot of traffic at certain times of the day, people trying to go across to get Carter Sims Road going west. I just see it as a big potential problem where we would at least need a light or something there to ensure public safety. Secondly, with respect to the council of those that want to build here, I disagree that this project, it doesn't meet up with the Plano plan for several reasons. Compatibility with the area and keeping the character of the area, which some people have spoken about. Like I said, I'm one of those that moved out there in recent years, about 4 years ago. A lot of us moved out there because we don't want to live around a store like this. We moved out there so that we could live in a more rural area. I would say I've heard that Dollar General wants to build a store every 7 miles in rural America. There's one 2.5 miles from this site. There's also the Plano store, which is maybe a mile or less south of here, where you can get a lot of the same things. There's also Jimmy Deemer's, as I still call it, or the IGA up where Plano meets Scottsville Road, where you can get a lot of the same kinds of things. So the way that I would urge you to consider this as far as compatibility with the character of our community, this store would not add very much to Plano, but it would take away a lot. We can get the stuff that we need pretty close by, and we don't want to lose the rural way of life that we have, and certainly not the safety that we have out there. I know it's not y'all's job to pick and choose what kind of business would be opened here, but hey, I'd love it if it remained a garage. I could use somebody. I'd love it if it was a place like the Boy Store. I'm glad somebody mentioned that. I'd love it if it was a place where we could sell, like a farmer's market type place, where we could sell lots of the stuff that's grown around there. Like I said, I know that's not y'all's job to pick and choose what kind of business goes into this lot, but I would submit to y'all, and I would urge you to think about this ain't the business to go there.
Is there anyone else that would like to make a statement?
My name is Jennifer Eberhardt. I live at 657 Larman Mill Road in the Plano community.
Swear to tell the truth.
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you.
I, too, am opposed to this structure going here is because it is a very busy place. It doesn't matter where they're located, but they're very busy. But this particular location, there's a lot of residents here. There's a lot of drivers going in and out. We have a lot of new homes that are coming in that area. And this is just a bad place for something of this type of business. We know that from our past experiences with planning and zoning and having our neighborhood meetings, that the state has no plans to do anything with Plano Road 622. So there's not going to be any lights there. We have no hope for that, is what we've been told. So with that in mind, someone had asked about our community, and yes, we had the community meetings. We had a lot of people fill those rooms when we had them. She presented what you all found, that we wanted it to remain more of a residential area and not a lot of commercial coming in, such as this. And the fire department is very involved in our community. So we are a community oriented, and I would like to present that. Thank you.
Excuse me, Jennifer, if I may. How would you reconcile the fact that it's currently commercial, operating commercial, and this new commercial application?
Current building that is there, and I've lived in this area for 17 years, is a garage, okay? It's not open 7 days a week. It is not one that there are multiple people running in and out of it. Yes, there are cars there being repaired. There are delivery trucks coming and going, but it's nothing like what this would be on a 7 days a week from 8 to 9, 10 o'clock at night. Nothing like that. Someone had made the comment that cars come in and out of that shop. Yes, they do, mainly on Plano Road. There are garage sizes on Carter Sims Road, but there's not a lot of traffic going there. I beg your pardon. No, let me verify. There's not a lot of traffic coming from that business onto Carter Sims like there would be coming out of a Dollar General store onto Carter Sims and coming out of Plano Road. Thank you. That's okay. I'm happy to clarify.
Ma'am?
Sir?
Do you have your car worked on there at the garage?
I beg your pardon, sir?
Do you have your automobile worked on at that garage?
No, sir, I haven't. I did have my lawnmower worked on there when there was a lawnmower at the end, a repair place at the end of that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Anyone else like to make a statement? Mr. Davenport?
Yes, sir. Just a few points. First thing, let me say that my client will agree that the 80% brick stone DPC will apply to all four sides.
Chris, let me read what DPC number 6 will now.
Yes, sir.
Any structure on the property shall face Plano Road. All facades of any building will be constructed with a minimum of 80% brick, stone, ephes, or similar material. No plain-faced block shall be allowed on facades. And then the final sentence will be deleted.
Correct. What is the final sentence? Maybe just double check.
Sealed fasteners.
Yes, that can be deleted.
May I ask one
Yeah.
thing? When I spoke with Mr. Rafferty earlier in the day, he had mentioned cement-based siding.
Yeah.
Is that something?
He really has no intention of using that. Sometime we need to talk, because I've always took cement board to be included as a similar material, but that's just for my purposes sometime. But
Maybe a question for Ham. Ham, would it be appropriate for us to use the exhibit that was passed around here as?
We have marked it as an exhibit and as a part of the record on behalf, as a part of the applicant's application.
And Chris, you have no opposition to that being the exhibit, at least that's.
Oh, that was my intent by showing it to you guys, yes. Yeah.
I asked staff what exactly a living fence is. Is that just landscaping? Or is that all the way around the property or just what area?
It's only shown on the western property line. If you look at the exhibit, there's vegetation. It's kind of noted with this star under landscape legend. It's along, do we have a pointer? Sorry. It's proposed along this western property line here. The applicants may want to speak more to what their idea of a living fence is. We don't really define that in the zoning ordinance, so it could mean different things to other people.
It's their intention for that to be dense vegetation, at least 6 feet in height. That'd be a fair.
Trees.
Yeah.
It's like an evergreen tree. So it
It's
stays
just in the back, there's nothing on the sides or the front or anything?
Well, the front will have landscaping, Commissioner, consistent with the zoning ordinance. And I guess one point I want to make, this site will also be irrigated. Okay, so there was a comment about kind of this site will be irrigated, it will be curbed, it will be landscaped. It will be a stark contrast to what is there today. That's their intent, that's what they're going to do. So, and I think that kind of gets Commissioner Clark to your statement earlier about the quality, and hopefully they've addressed that now with the brick in the back too, making that all brick and stone, that 80% DPC applying to all 4 sides. I understand there, if you listen to the concerns that have been raised, it's almost entirely traffic. And I speak to this issue almost every application I'm before you all. This project was submitted to Warren County Public Works. And what they wanted done were the improvements we've agreed to do. And we can get into a debate, frankly, do you increase traffic with a retail of this type? I would tell you that Dollar General's business plan is almost entirely modeled under catching people on the way home or to work. Not so much, this is not the Greenwood Mall, okay? This is a place where you stop to get those few sundry things while you're on your way, and there's no coincidence why this is a location that's being looked at. It's because of the traffic plan that's already there. The traffic that does use that Plano, which I don't know the proper term, whether that's an arterial roadway, but that's obviously a significant road in our community. 622 is. So we've done those things, or they've agreed to do those things to improve that area to suffice. We would ask for you to vote to approve this, please.
Just one last question. With regard to traffic, who did you say you consulted with?
Josh Moore, Warren County Public Works.
And was it their recommendation that you have 2 entrances?
Absolutely.
Okay. So their concern was having to come out onto 622.
That creates so many more
and then have to
problems
turn
than
back.
that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I think you asked that question. If you're going to require those people to turn left onto Plano and then turn left into the entranceway, that's a non-starter for a traffic guy or lady.
The Kentucky Transportation Cabinet also reviewed this proposal, and the proposed access point onto Plano Road was at their suggestion in that particular location.
Again, I would ask y'all please to approve the application. Thank you all.
Thank you. Commissioners, you have anything else? If not, I'll call for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and conditional upon a general development plan docket 2019-24 Z County based upon testimony and documents presented in this public hearing. The proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and actions presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Balance? Yes. Commissioner Rich?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Coppinger?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Madison?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gay?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Houston.
Yes, ma'am.
Need a motion for the variance now.
Sorry, there's a typo on the variance page. It should be 28 feet, not 20.
Make a motion to approve the request for a variance at 2371 Plano Road, docket number 2019 V-14. A variance of 28 feet from the 40-foot rear yard setback required between the property zone general business and a residential district use. The testimony presented in this public hearing has shown in granting of this variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, welfare, and will not alter the essential character or general vicinity, and will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations.
Second.
Commissioner Madison,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren,
Ma'am.
Commissioner Rich,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Balance, Commissioner Clark,
No.
Commissioner Coppinger, Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gay,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Houston.
Yes, ma'am. Motion's passed, and we will move this forward. Thank you all. We have a couple items
The
under new
recommendation
business.
of the Planning Commission will be to fiscal court, and it will be their decision as to whether or not to approve the recommendation.
When will that meeting be?
I don't know. It'll be advertised, though. He'll,
Did anybody mention the fact that there was a commercial spot up there by the John Deere dealership by the apartments? Right next door to that.
Under new business, we have the purchase of a vehicle.
Thank you, Chair Houston. Before you tonight, we have a previously budgeted item, so this is an item we've had in the budget, and feel like that now's the time to go ahead and ask you for the purchase of a vehicle. We use the state pricing contract for the bid process and have selected what will be a second for us, a Dodge Ram Quad Cab 4-wheel drive. It'd be from Glenn's Freedom Dodge in Lexington, Kentucky. It's for the state pricing contract amount of $23,648.07 plus a delivery charge. So that is what we're asking for your permission to go ahead and get that ordered so we can get that vehicle. Part of the need for that is just the record, by far, amount of construction that we have going on in the county. It's as well as we have, with the restart of our code enforcement program, we have a great need for another vehicle. They're routinely all gone, and we have to wait on vehicles to be changed out. So we do have the need for the extra vehicle, and or wouldn't be asking otherwise. So the motion before, suggested motion before you is to approve that purchase through the state pricing contract.
Make the motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Rich,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Balance, Commissioner Clark.
I have a question.
Huh?
Did we not have anybody local that we could have? I know we try to keep everything locally in the community.
We just use the state pricing contract. That's typically what we've always done since I've been here. It prevents us from having to go through the long and protracted bid process of going out to bid and opening that up statewide. But we've always just used the state pricing contract, similar to what the city does.
Commissioner Coppinger,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert, Commissioner Gay,
Ma'am.
Commissioner Warren,
Ma'am.
Commissioner Madison, Chair Houston.
Yes, ma'am. Have a couple of personnel items.
Sure. Personnel Committee met earlier this evening and discussed the changes that you have staff memo presented before you. If we need to discuss any of those items, we could entertain a motion to go in executive session. Otherwise, the proposed motion before you is just to accept those personnel changes as presented.
Second.
Commissioner Rich? Commissioner Vitale? Commissioner Balance? Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Coppinger? Commissioner Graham?
Yes.
Commissioner Volkert?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gay?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Madison?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Houston?
Yes, ma'am.
Megan, how long did it take you to get your MBA?
5 semesters straight.
Good for you.
Congratulations. Well done.
We'll not have a July 4th Planning Commission because it's a holiday, so July 18th is our next meeting.
Thank you, and we're adjourned.